Hello, ghosties. I'm Chance Lee,
And I'm Amanda McAvoy.
and this is That's So Gothic, a movie podcast about girls, guys, and haunted houses. We don't usually talk about our age on this podcast, but I'll just say that I'm 29 and I've been 29 for a very long time. And today's protagonist is also ageless. We are discussing Let Me In.
As some of you may have heard, there was an incident last night. One of your recent graduates here was killed. In the meantime, we need you all to be on the lookout for any suspicious activity.
You guys just moved in, huh?
How do you know?
I live next door to you. What happened there? Some kids from school? I'll help you. But you're a girl. I'm a lot stronger than you think I am.
Can you hear me through the wall?
Only sometimes.
I found another body a few days ago. Victim completely drained of blood. Please don't see that boy again.
Where's your dad? He pissed on my dad. What was that? What was going on?
Hello?
What are you? Really? I need blood to live.
Hey there. You okay?
There's a whole lot more than just what's been going on around here. This goes way back. Other states, other cities.
I have to go away.
Maybe you got something you want to tell me?
Do you think there's such a thing as evil?
Released in 2010, Let Me In was written and directed by Matt Reeves. It is based on the Swedish novel, which is translated into English as Let the Right One In by John Alvid Lindqvist.
Ooh,
My
good
best
job.
IKEA,
Yeah.
my best IKEA impersonation. It stars Kodi Smit-McPhee as
Mhm.
Owen, a troubled 12-year-old. Chloe Grace-Moretz as Abby, the one who's been 12 for a very long time.
Mhm.
Richard Jenkins as her guardian, and Dylan Minnette as Kenny, the
Yeah.
school bully. And this is the story of a friendship between a vampire and a fucked up kid.
Mhm. Yeah.
This movie was not a success.
Really?
Yeah, I was surprised.
Yeah.
It had a budget of 20 million and it only grossed 28 million.
Oh, okay. So not like a failure, but definitely not
Yeah,
good.
not
Wow.
good. And it was very well received, though. It
Mhm.
has an 88% critical tomato and a 76% audience tomato. And Roger Ebert gave it 3.5 stars. He couldn't resist insulting Twilight, of course. Anything at this time you were required to do would be insult Twilight.
Yes.
But he did say something interesting. He said that in Twilight, sexuality is treated as a tease. The handsome Edward is cast as a sexy but dangerous threat who manfully holds back from sex with Bella Swan.
Manfully.
And she's tempted, but the films are cautionary fables about the danger of teenage sex. In Let Me In, sex is seen more as a troubling encroachment on privacy. Owen and Abby, for their own reasons, quail from intimacy and contact, and their only sensuous moments involve the comfort of close, tender hugs. They're also 12, but
Yeah.
those hoping to see a quote vampire movie will be surprised by a good film.
Yes. Yeah, that's a pretty apt review, I would say.
Yeah, I really liked this movie. I saw this movie in the theater
Hmm.
on a hot date.
Mhm.
and I really loved this guy. And so for a while I wondered, I was like, ooh, do I only like this movie so much because it was such a good date?
Yeah.
But no, I've seen it quite a few times since then. The last time I rewatched this was when The Batman came out because Matt Reeves directed The Batman.
Oh, I was wondering where I recognized his name. That's funny.
Speaking of Edward Cullen, it was
Yeah.
the forgot why am I forgetting his name? Uh
Robert Pattinson.
Pattinson, the
Yes.
Bat Pat. Um
Yeah,
the Pat. I hated that fucking movie so much.
it was so stupid. I would love to talk about it someday because it was just I you know what? That movie, Saving Grace, was Colin Farrell as the Penguin. Um, and I did like Robert Pattinson in it a little bit. So I think Matt Reeves knows how to direct his vampire heartthrobs.
He does. I do. I
Yeah.
really liked Robert Pattinson in it. I
Yeah.
hated and Colin Farrell was great.
Oh,
Didn't even know
yeah.
it was him,
He was
honestly,
absolutely
until the end
insane.
of the movie. They're
Unhinged.
doing a TV show. They're doing a Penguin TV show.
Stop it. With him?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
So stay tuned for that.
Yeah. I don't know how
Because
I feel about it.
I was looking to see if there was another Batman movie in the works, and there's the
Mm.
Penguin TV show.
Wow. Okay. Oh,
Probably on HBO Max or Max.
you're right. Yeah, they have all of those. Yeah. I'm afraid it'll be one of those taking a good thing and doing too much with it because he's just so stupid in that movie. It's so much fun.
He was fun.
Yeah.
And I can't remember, this movie has, to me, the most iconic car accident scene in any film, Let Me In. And I can't remember
Yeah.
if, I think he does something similar
I
in The
think he does
Batman.
too. You're right. Yeah, I think in Batman, I think because in Let Me In, it's sort of a like a backseat point of view thing. I think in Batman they do something similar where it's either a driver or like in the car point of view crash. I love
Mhm.
that. Yeah. I kind of forgot about that scene actually until you just mentioned it. So in Let Me In. So um
I've been such a fan of that scene in Let Me In. I feel like a lot of people copy it. I feel like this was the first
mm,
movie that did something like that. It was the
yeah.
first movie I saw that did something like that. And there's so many special features. There's two about how they filmed the car accident that
Really?
makes me think it really was groundbreaking at the time. Because
Yeah.
why do it if it's a shot that's been done before?
Right.
And I feel like he in Batman, it was like, no, what he was thinking, no one saw Let Me In. I need people to see this cool accident, so
Yes.
we're gonna just do it again.
Yep, I'm so freaking excited about this. I know people are at least going to show up for this movie.
Yes.
He splices in that scene exactly. He makes it work.
Yeah, he just superimposes Pattinson's face over Richard Jenkins and calls it a
Yeah,
day.
Batman is driving this like Cadillac Oldsmobile or whatever it is.
Oh man. So
Yeah.
we'll talk more about that when we get there.
Mhm.
I love that scene.
Yeah.
And I have another review to share, which is by someone named Anita Dunham on Google. And she says that this movie is my favorite Chloe Moritz movie. It's disturbing, has a cute romance, and is legitimately terrifying. But Anita must have been doing this on like voice to text because Chloe Moritz is spelled Clowey. Chloe.
Chloe. I love that.
I was like, at first I thought it said clowny, and I was like,
Yeah.
what? Oh no, that's just how she's spelling Chloe.
Oh my
So
God. It
yeah.
sounds Australian. Chloe.
Chloe, razor blades, Chloe Moretz. Yeah, another bad accent.
Yeah.
But Chloe Moretz, so she is a That's So Gothic returning figure. She was
Yes.
in Suspiria.
Mm-hmm.
I don't remember how much we talked about her at the time because she's not a big part of
No,
Suspiria.
I don't think we really did. Yeah.
This movie and Kick-Ass made me such a big fan of hers for a
Yeah.
while.
Yeah. She's so good in Kick-Ass. She's a very talented actress. What has she been in recently?
She's been making some choices. Someone made the point that like Anya Taylor-Joy came along and
Mm,
maybe auditioning for the same roles as Chloe Moretz and was
I
kind
could
of
see that.
taking that.
Yeah.
Because she was in an Amazon TV show that I kind of wanted to see.
Oh,
Peripheral. I can never say that word.
yes. I kept seeing ads for that. That's
And
right.
she's in this movie called Demon in the Sky, Cloud in the Sky, where
Ooh.
she is a female fighter pilot in World War II. And I really like this movie
Oh, yeah, yeah,
because
yeah.
the first half hour is almost a one-woman show. The camera is
Ooh.
just with her. She's
Yeah.
in the little bubble under the plane with the gun,
Mm-hmm.
and the men are talking on the headphones. And so you only see her.
Yeah.
And she just owns this movie for the first
Really?
30 minutes, and it's really good. And then it turns into fucking cheesy as shit monster movie, but in a
Oh.
good way. It's
Oh,
so
okay.
fun.
Yeah.
And there is a scene where because monsters show up, and there's a
Yeah.
scene where the bottom part of the plane is like sheared off, and she falls, and a plane flying below her explodes, and the explosion blasts her back into the plane. It's
Stop!
great. It's
Oh,
so good.
that's so much fun. I have to see that.
You have to
Oh my
watch it. It's like an
goodness.
hour and I don't know, 15 minutes, hour 20 minutes.
Really?
It's like a
Yeah.
good B movie. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's great. And she
Ooh.
elevates it. Yeah.
I'll definitely have to check that out. Have you seen, I'm just looking through some of her movies. I have not seen it, but I want to. The Miseducation of Cameron Post.
It has such a nice poster. I've never
Okay.
seen the movie, but
Yes.
I love the poster.
Yes. The author wrote something that I really liked of that book, played bad heroines. So I decided, honestly, whenever I hear that a book has been adapted into even like a mediocre movie, I'm like, I'm just gonna watch the movie. I'm a
Yep.
terrible librarian. I truly, if I don't have to read the book, I won't.
Oh,
Um,
same. I'll never
yeah,
read this book, this Swedish
yeah.
book. This book
Oh
is like
yeah,
500 pages long.
absolutely
And
not.
no, and they talk
Yeah.
a lot in the commentary about the book because
Mm-hmm.
what the critics who don't like this movie are the kind of snobby ones who are like, "Oh, it's a
Mm,
remake of the Swedish movie."
right.
Um, but Matt Reeves says that he's adapting the book, and it's not a remake of the movie, it's just another adaptation of the book.
Oh,
But then
okay.
critics of that say that there's a lot of shots in this movie that are very similar to shots in the Swedish film. Don't know if
I,
that's true, and I don't care.
yeah, I was gonna ask you if you've seen the Swedish movie, because I do think I remember hearing that this was like almost a shot for shot remake, but I don't think that's true, even without seeing it.
I saw the Swedish movie actually
Yeah.
before this came out in theaters,
Mm,
so it's been almost 20, what, 15, 20 years.
yeah.
And I remember not really liking it.
Mm.
And so I really liked this one, and it's like, you know why I like this? Because I'm an American, god damn it. And like I was like, do you know what I like? I like all the music references.
Yep.
I like the fact that Reagan is on the TV. I like the
Yes.
fact that they're playing Pac-Man. Like,
Right.
I love that this movie is American. And I just
Yes.
wave my flag into the
Woo.
theater and I say, God bless
USA.
America. And
USA.
USA, CGM for Chloe Grace Moritz, KSM, like USA. Like, that's me. I
Yes.
am so proud to be an American when I watch Let Me In.
It's so funny that you say that because I kind of have like a similar feeling with this movie without, not in relationship to like its origins or it being a remake. I was afraid I wasn't going to like this movie because in my mind, I don't know how, I thought it was going to be very similar to Lake Mungo. I think because like I just
Mm.
saw it as like this dark and it was, everyone talks about how it's like about kids and an allegory and da da da. And so I was like, honestly, I am an iPad kid. I did not really like Lake Mungo. I there are certain movies that I really like that you see it and you want to rewatch it to find hidden things. Lake Mungo was not one of those, and I think that's why a lot of people liked it. Is you kind of go back and like rewatch and pick up on little details. So I was really afraid I wasn't going to like this movie. I thought it was going to be too slow paced, too, you know, just not able to like hold my attention. Like I said, I'm like an iPad kid. Have you seen the joke about people like watching Oppenheimer with like um the like TikTok video below it too, so that like it keeps your attention. Like that's how I would have to watch Oppenheimer. Like
Same.
I don't know why I'm doing a movie podcast with you, because it's so hard to like keep my attention with movies. But honestly, like this, I think what really sealed the deal for me, and I'm jumping ahead a little bit, but the scene, I won't spoil too much, but the scene where she's in sort of like, I think it's like a bridge tunnel or like an overpass or something, that sealed the deal for me. This movie is surprisingly horrifying. It's really genuinely scary. The shot with the car, like there's so much action, but it still has like moments to pause. It's still very much about the two kids and their relationship. But yeah, it's great to be an American sometimes, and this is one of those times.
God, I want a Big Mac. I don't like Big Macs. I want a quarter pounder with cheese. And I'm trying to think of other American things that are McDonald's, but I'll just go full on McDonald's. I want fries. I want a shake. No, I want a vanilla cone. And just sit and some Milk Duds and watch Let Me In my like American flag bikini. Like that is that is how I want to celebrate.
Britney Spears in the background or something.
Britney, yes. Britney, Mariah. All of that. Yes.
The
it's so good.
Of watching Spring Breakers is about equitable to watching this movie.
It's true. Yeah. I never feel more American than Spring Breakers and this.
Exactly.
And my other, way off topic, but my other American movie is Drop Dead Gorgeous. Because I don't know if I've talked about this, had Denise Richards in a tank top with a rifle in front of the, is the most American thing I've ever seen. And the American flag should just be replaced with a picture of Denise Richards in a tank top, loading a rifle. Like that is America. And I never thought I was straight until I saw that. And I was like, I am straight and patriotic, like double surprise seeing that.
Absolutely. Again, off topic, but the one I, was always like, for gun control, we won't get political on the podcast. But the moment when I was like, you know what? Fucking love guns. Everyone should have one. Was I saw a shirt at a Colorado rest stop and it said, if God wanted us to be vegetarians, he would have made broccoli more fun to shoot at. And I was like, yep. Get me a hunting rifle. I am true blue-blooded American. Let's do this.
I agree. As a recovering vegetarian, I agree 100%.
Yeah. So anyways, back to the Swedish movie remake.
The Swedish movie. Oh yeah. Yeah. So I had seen the Swedish movie. And I can't relate to it. I'm not Swedish.
Yeah,
I have a shit ton of IKEA furniture that does not make me Swedish. And
that's funny. I'm recording this on an IKEA table.
Me too. My desk is IKEA. Yes. But yeah, it does not make me Swedish. And I just remember like the kids in that movie being very flat, and it's always hard to tell. It's like, are they flat because it's a different culture? And I don't really understand the nuances of the dialect and the dialogue.
Yeah.
But this movie, like, the kids are so fucking good.
So good. And it's probably because America has relaxed child labor laws. Those kids
let them work. Put them to work.
Absolutely. Because you get performances like this.
Kodi Smit-McPhee in this movie is so good.
Really
and the shit they put that kid through.
Yeah.
It's terrifying.
Yes. Yeah. He's getting tossed around. He is we'll talk about it later in terms of the plot, but he's in very precarious situations. He is and he's doing such a good job.
He's so good. He's so creepy and weird.
He is. But he's also like, you knew a kid like this, he's not unbelievable either.
Right. He's the sad loner kid.
Yeah.
He was only like 13 when they were filming this, which is wild.
Yeah, I was just gonna look to see how old he is, but I mean, yeah, I don't know how old he is, but whatever he is, he actually looks like he's 12, 13.
Yes, he
That's
looks
another thing. Yeah.
very young. And then always forget Dylan Minnette is in this movie.
Yeah.
I also, for the longest time, thought he was Logan Lerman, and I still don't quite know the difference between these two young white
Oh,
men.
yes. I don't think I do either then.
Yeah, but I all I know is that Dylan Minnette has a sexy shower scene in Scream 5.
Oh, okay. Yes. Oh, he's like the son of the real estate agent or something, right?
He's Sheriff Judy's son.
Sheriff Judy, that's who it is. Yes, 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 yes. You're
Hmm.
right. Yeah. Yeah, I just looked him up. He was in Goosebumps, which
Oh, I love
I think
Goosebumps.
I was literally just gonna say I think is underrated.
I love.
Um,
We should definitely do that movie. I love
that would
that
be so
movie.
good. I genuinely think that movie is very underrated. Oh, I love it. It makes me so happy. And we haven't talked about Jack Black, have we?
We need to.
I can go on a long conversation about Jack Black.
Yeah.
So, yeah, absolutely. Okay, Goosebumps on the list.
On the list. Yeah. So, yes. And Dylan Minnette's so good in this though. He's like,
Yes.
because he's a piece of shit, but then
Yes.
like also kind of charming in parts. There's these little parts where you see him be a little. He's still a shit, but like a harmless shit, and it's kind
Yeah.
of cute. And then he's just like one of the worst bullies ever in a
Yes.
movie.
Yes. Yeah. He
Ugh.
sucks, but like it isn't, I'm trying to think of like a stereotypical bully, like, Sid from Toy Story. Like he's not just like an asshole to be an asshole. Like he kind of has some motivation and reasoning, and
Hmm.
and again, I think because he is kind of I think they cast it really well. He's kind of this like charming, snot-nosed kid, but he also plays an asshole really well. And again, just another actor who looks like a child playing a child role. And
Yes.
you don't get that a lot.
He Yeah, I wonder because he's got to be young too. I feel like he's
Yeah.
just been around for so long, but I guess
Yeah.
not. He is. Oh, he's younger than Kodi Smit-McPhee.
What?
Yeah,
Oh my
he's a
God.
year younger.
Hmm. That is incredibly shocking.
Yeah. On the commentary, he does talk about a lot how they were really good friends off screen.
Oh, that's so
So
nice.
yes, yes, that was nice.
I love that.
So not only I knew this was a Swedish movie, there
Mhm.
was also a TV show like within the last calendar year.
What?
Yeah, no one watched it and it's already been canceled.
Um,
And
English or Swedish?
English, it was on
Oh.
like Paramount Plus or something
Oh.
or Showtime, and it had Anika Noni Rose and Nick Stahl and Grace Gummer, who's one of Meryl Streep's little gummers.
Oh. Okay, yeah.
Yeah, canceled after one season. And then there was also a stage play of this story
Ooh.
in England that was written and directed by the guys who did the Harry Potter like book 8 stage play.
Yeah. Interesting. I think this would make a really fun stage play, actually. I would be very interested. I wonder, I don't know if you know if it's still running, or what am I going to do? Jump over to London? But that's,
I I do want to know because sometimes they do the recordings, and you can
yeah,
watch these recorded
right.
plays, and the
Yeah,
play got really good reviews, so I would watch
really.
the play.
Yeah. I would be really interested in seeing that because I'm sure they probably downplay some of the horror, and obviously they probably have to downplay a lot of like the gore and the blood and stuff. So I would be very interested to know how much I like this movie without those aspects, because I think I would, you know,
Yeah.
give myself a little bit of credit. Um, I think I would, but that is really, really interesting.
Yeah. Yeah, very cool. So maybe
Yeah.
someday we'll be lucky enough to see the stage play.
Yeah, or we'll pop over to London, do that, and then do the forest bathing.
Forest bathing with what's her name?
I feel
Yes.
like brought it up in every podcast we've talked about since. I'm so
The
sorry.
forest bathing. No, I forgot about her. We definitely need to forest bathe. And I feel like all the great, especially all the movies we've been watching lately, always have some fun British estate that you can
They
actually
do.
visit. So we got to go
Yes.
on a tour of all these places, all these
Yeah.
movie locations.
We'll start a Patreon. And if you want to join us,
We
join
can
our
do like
Patreon.
a guided tour as a group, like That's So
It's so
Gothic
much
group tour.
fun.
That would
Oh
be
my
fun.
goodness. Comment on our social media if you want that. I'll do it.
Yes, yes, let's do it. That'll be fun.
Yeah.
So in the meantime, we'll talk about this movie.
Yeah. In
So this is a
America.
God bless America though. God bless America. So this is a Hammer film, and they have that logo that always makes me think it's a Marvel movie. That because it looks just like the Marvel logo. This was the first Hammer film since 1976. And we've talked about two Hammer films on this podcast, Woman in Black and The Lodge was also a Hammer film.
Oh, so both of those came after this movie?
Both of those came after this one.
Oh.
So this movie takes place in March of 1983 in Los Alamos, New Mexico. And I have this guy that's in a hospital, and he's in a hospital bed, and he ends up jumping out the window. And there's a detective. We don't really know what's going on. It's intentionally disorienting us from the beginning.
Yeah.
And then we get a little like earlier, 3 weeks ago or whatever. I forget what the time period is. But we meet the young boy, Owen, played by Kodi Smit-McPhee, singing and eating now and laters and singing the now and later jingle. Eat some now, save some for later. That comes up a lot in this movie.
Yeah.
A jingle I do not recall.
I was going to say, now and laters are not a part of my childhood. So
I think they're so gross.
Yeah, they're like kind of like little licorice, right? Or like almost like jelly beans.
I remember them as being kind of like Laffy Taffies, but harder to chew.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't
be
even know
thinking
if
of Mike and Ike.
I think I am thinking of like Mike and Ike, or at least something. Yeah. I don't know that
I
I
feel like
ever.
now and laters are square.
Oh, okay. Then I don't think I've ever eaten one. Is it similar to like a jujube? Did you ever have a jujube? Those are like little.
There's a drag queen named Jujubee.
Yeah, I don't know if I ever had a now and later.
You are not missing out.
Yeah.
You're like the cheap candy.
Yeah, yeah. So they must have been a bigger deal in like the 80s.
Yep, I think so.
Yeah.
Because then you could buy them for cheap. You know, we find out later he's stealing money from his mom's purse and buying all this candy. But so his parents are divorcing. He lives with his mom. We never see her face. And she's kind of like, she does talk, but it's almost like Nanny from Muppet Babies. We never really see her from the neck up. He is very troubled, and he's pretending to stab someone. He's saying, say that again, little girl, and like using a knife. And he's wearing this plastic transparent mask.
It's so unsettling.
Do you know what who the mask is?
I don't think so. No, who is it?
I've seen this movie like 6 times, and I've never watched it with the commentary, I think. So it's Richard Jenkins.
Richard Jenkins.
He's the guardian. He's the other actor, the adult actor in the movie.
Oh.
Yeah,
oh my
it's his
God.
face. So they had to make a mold of his face, because when they put all the burn makeup on him, they needed like a mold of his face. So they used the mold of his face to make the plastic mask.
That's so funny.
And
so creative.
And makes it both more unsettling and like very interestingly foreshadowing when we see how the character's arc is going.
Right.
I just thought that was genius.
That is really smart. Yeah.
So he's wearing this mask. He's giving Rear Window energy, spying on his neighbors.
Yes.
And we see Richard Jenkins show up. His character is nameless, and he shows up with Chloe, and she's not wearing shoes, even though there's snow on the ground. And the next morning, we see that their apartment, they've moved in, and their apartment windows are covered with cardboard.
Mm-hmm.
We're also introduced to Kenny, Dylan Minnette, who's the school bully,
Yep.
who snaps Owen in the face with a towel after gym class
Yeah.
and gives him such a painful deep wedgie that he pees himself.
Yeah.
And so that afternoon, Owen buys some more candy and a new pocket knife and is like stabbing a tree.
Yeah.
And we meet Abby. So Abby is Chloe. She's shoeless again. And they chat a little bit, and she says, I can't be your friend.
Mm-hmm.
And he says, who said I wanted to be your friend? Like the dialogue and the kids, they're so good. And
it is. Yeah.
like the brilliance of this movie is the way he directs the kids, I think, Matt Reeves. And on the commentary, he talks about two things. One, he co-created Felicity with J.J. Abrams.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
Blows my mind. I fucking loved Felicity. And because of the J.J. Abrams connection, I think Matt Reeves wrote Super 8 and got to meet Steven Spielberg because that's such a Spielberg-inspired movie.
Yeah.
And he asked Spielberg for advice on directing kids. And Spielberg said, let the kids direct you.
Oh, yeah.
And so he would ask them every scene, like, does this feel right? What would you do in this scene?
Yeah.
And just like, that's why they feel like kids. Like, it just feels so authentic.
Yeah.
And that's something that I really like about this movie.
Yeah, I was going to say the dialogue, it's not trying to sound older than they are or more sophisticated. And I mean, like, technically he kind of could have gone that way, especially with Abby. And I mean, Abby is maybe somewhat plays a little bit more mature than her age, but again, it just, like you said, it feels much more natural, especially you know, little Kodi there. He's a weird little shithead kid, and I love him.
He's a genius in this movie. He's so good.
Yep.
So we see the Guardian, played by Richard Jenkins. He kills this man. He's hiding in the back of his car, and there's this really scary shot where there's a train passing, and he's in the back seat with like a garbage bag over his head with 2 eye holes ripped out, which according to the commentary, Richard Jenkins made himself.
Oh, good for him.
They weren't sure what they were going to cover him up with.
Yeah.
And he grabbed a plastic bag and tore out the eye holes and put it on his head. And the director was like, that works.
Yep.
So,
it reminds me of The Town That Dreaded Sundown, like that. I don't know if you know. Yeah, like
I've heard of that. Yeah.
And it's so eerie and creepy.
It's very well done. And he strangles this man, kills him, strings him up in the woods, and punctures his jugular to drain all his blood into like a milk gallon jug. But he drops it. Whoops.
I know. I love that he's kind of a goofball. He's kind of a dunce.
It's kind of, I know, I've seen this movie so many times. The first time I saw it, I took it so seriously, but now it's almost like this comedy of errors with him trying to kill these people and failing repeatedly.
Right. Like, you don't get a lot of background on him. I think maybe she mentions that they've been together, traveling together for a while, but like he seems like he's almost like this new, like just like whoopsie daisy. Like,
yeah, she'll call him her dad for a bit, I think, maybe, or Owen just thinks Owen says that's your dad.
Right.
And that was something I had trouble with. I don't know if I'm just unobservant, but in the Swedish movie, I had no idea who this guy was supposed to be. You know, why he showed up. And this movie gives you a clue as to who he is near the end of it. So back at the apartment, Owen's listening through the wall because they've moved in next door. And Abby is yelling at quote unquote dad in this like deep male demon voice.
Yeah, she's commanding.
Oh, it's so scary. And he says he's tired and suggests maybe he wants to get caught. And that evening, Owen's outside. They have like a little courtyard with a jungle gym and some other stuff. And he's out there playing with the Rubik's Cube. And he shows Abby the Rubik's Cube, but also says she smells funny. So
Classic
she,
kid stuff.
I know. So she kills a jogger. And this is the scene you were talking about
Yeah.
earlier in the tunnel.
Oh, I mean, it's genuinely one of the scariest scenes I've seen in a long time. And also, I should mention that vampires usually like don't do it for me. Like they usually don't scare me. But I think it is because this movie is so believable. Um, it really it freaked me out. It's a scary, scary scene.
And she's so feral and
Yeah,
violent.
right. Like I just, there's so many times when, it's one of those situations where you can put yourself in the victim's shoes because like, yeah, so he's jogging through this tunnel. He stumbles across this girl who is barefoot and dirty and, you know, doesn't look
Crying.
healthy. Yeah, exactly. Like I I don't know what I would do in that situation. I would probably stop and ask if she wanted me to call the
Hmm.
police or something. And just the second she gets up and gets sort of like around his like neck, oh, so scary. And it's all done in sort of a silhouette because you're just seeing it through the tunnel with the backdrop. It's frightening. It gives me the goosebumps, the heebie-jeebies.
Yeah, it's really well shot. It's really well
Mm-hmm.
staged. Creepy as
Mm-hmm.
fuck. Love
Yep.
it.
Yes.
Love it.
Yeah.
So now we know she's some sort of monster,
Mm-hmm.
vampire, and she's fed, and now she's like looking like she's conditioned and she's all
Yes.
clean and she doesn't stink anymore.
Yep.
And she does the Rubik's Cube and everything. And he asks her how old she is, and she says 12, more or less.
Yeah.
How old are
Did this
you? And he says 12 years, 8 months, and 9 days. What do you mean, more or less?
Oh my God. Did this movie
Just,
come out? It had to have come out after Twilight, right?
oh, yes,
Because
yes,
he
yes,
makes
yes.
fun of it. Yeah. Because in Twilight, they, I think it's kind of later in this movie, but there is the line, where Bella asks Edward, "How old are you?" 17. "How long have you been 17?" "A long time."
Yeah, they do the same thing here. Yep.
Yep. Classic, vampire conversation. Every vampire
Ageless
you meet,
vampires.
you got to have this conversation with them. How old are you? How long?
I just hope if I become a vampire, like I still look cute.
Yeah, I think I'm already past the point where I would want to be stuck forever. So
No.
I I do just because I have a bad back now.
You
Well,
wouldn't have to worry about that. The thing is that when
that's
you become a
true.
vampire, like all that stuff goes away, but
Yeah,
like
you
your
do become
physical
super strong.
appearance stays the
Yeah,
same. You get
you're
like a little
right.
glow up, but like,
Yes, you're right. You're
mhm.
right. Actually, you know what? I do like being this age because I, for one of the first times, did not get carded the other day at a bar. So
Wow.
I do think I would like to stay this age because it would be really annoying to show my ID as a
Hmm.
vampire.
Yeah.
Um, so you're right. You're right.
And all that paperwork you'd have to do and try to
Ugh.
explain why you're not aging and all that, that
Yeah.
would be hard.
Yeah. Yeah. Ugh. No. I would just like to live off the grid, and occasionally pop into my local dive bar. Oh, that would actually be such a fun life.
Yeah, very True Blood. Yeah.
Yeah, I could do some karaoke there on like Friday
Hmm.
nights. That would be really fun. All right, vampires, if you're listening,
Come get
I'm
us.
game.
We're ready. We're
We're
ready.
ready.
So in the movie, we have another That's So Gothic cameo. It's Olivia Hussey shows up. Hussey shows up in the Romeo and Juliet.
Oh,
They're
oh my
watching the
God.
Zeffirelli at Romeo and Juliet with Olivia
Yeah.
Hussey. Yeah.
That's so funny. I didn't even like put that together. Oh,
This is like the most That's So Gothic movie so far. Everybody,
yeah.
like half the cast is we've talked about before.
I
She
know,
was in
right?
Black Christmas, of course.
Yep.
And was she in something else that we watched?
I don't know.
Oh, she's in Psycho 4, which we didn't watch, but we talked about Psycho 2.
Right, right.
Yeah.
Yes. And I do think I watched Psycho 4 and in preparation.
Yeah, that was you took a bullet on that
Yeah.
one.
Yeah.
We get another harsh bullying scene, and then he gets the Romeo and Juliet book and
Mhm.
shares it with Abby, and they teach each other Morse code and they tap through the wall with Morse
Mhm.
code. But she will see this band-aid that he has on because Kenny hit him with like a pointer or something and cut his face.
Yeah.
And she tells him that that Owen needs to hit back.
Yes.
And if that's not enough, then he needs to use his knife. And if
Mhm.
that's not enough, then she'll help.
Yeah.
So very intense.
Mhm.
So Owen ends up signing up for weightlifting, and he later will steal $20 with this like painting of Jesus watching him. And he takes Abby to the pharmacy that also has the Pac-Man game and other arcade things. And I love this. I love when they're playing arcade games and buying candy.
Yeah.
Kodi is so cute in this.
Right. It's just kids being kids. Um, I it's one of the only like this well, it is really the only bright scene with the two of them. Usually they're somewhere dark and dreary. And even though this is like kind of like what's the word? Like LED
Neon?
neon lights. And so it's that kind of like cool toned, like grungy light. It's still bright. It's nice just seeing them have fun together.
Yeah, you get the feeling he's never really had a friend, and he has this
Yeah.
friend. And same with her, because she eats the candy that he gives her,
Hmm.
and even though it makes her throw up.
Yeah.
And they have this brief conversation where she says, "Would you like me if I wasn't a girl?"
Hmm.
And that's an interesting thing that comes up with these kind of like low queer undertones. I guess
Yeah.
in the book, she actually is a boy and
Oh.
was like she was castrated and has like
Oh.
nothing, has like a scar. Um,
Interesting.
yeah.
Huh.
And this
Yeah,
movie
that
doesn't really engage with that.
no, that would be, I feel like, a hard sell in America. And because I'm assuming they didn't do it for the Swedish movie either.
I think they do in the Swedish movie. I
Oh,
feel like there's a scene where you see the characters like scarred genitalia.
interesting. Yeah, I mean, I think that obviously adds a very interesting layer. Um, because I mean, you could start talking about, how much does gender affect, even the binary that you're assigned to if you're a vampire and you live
Hmm.
forever and you're not fully human, like do you even subscribe to that? Um
Right.
so interesting. Wasn't there something in Interview with a Vampire that was like similar? Or was it just that like it was obviously a very queer overall, but isn't when don't they meet like a genderless vampire in America, or am I when they go and visit, or am I remembering that incorrectly?
I don't remember.
Yeah. We don't have to dredge up those memories.
No, I
Uh,
liked that movie though. I liked that
yeah,
one, but
yeah.
yeah.
I thought there was something kind of thematically similar, but maybe I'm remembering wrong. Interesting.
Yeah. Yeah, and this movie doesn't she says that a couple times, but it doesn't really engage with that.
No.
Um But her guardian is starting to get a little jealous, maybe, and he asks her not to see that boy anymore.
Hmm.
But we soon get, to me, the iconic scene from this movie, the car crash scene.
Yeah.
They're playing, I don't know, I forget who sings the song. I'm
Oh,
burning for you.
yeah.
The scene is so good. So he's in the back seat with the bag over his head,
Hmm.
and he's got this like college kid that he's gonna kill. But then this other kid shows up and gets in the car with him. So
Yeah.
he's got these two young men in the car, and they go to the gas station, and one of them gets out to get a snack, and the other one stays in the car, but
Hmm.
then reaches into the back seat and sees him back there. And again, you just think like this is something that I as a teenager was scared of, that someone would be in the back
Yeah.
seat of the car. I think
Yes.
from urban legend.
Oh yeah.
But so it's like, oh, it's just so fucking creepy. But
Yeah.
it's funny leading up to that because the guy like throws his bag on
Yep.
him and everything. Like,
Yeah. Well, and it's funny because the whole scene I was stressed out for the Guardian, like for the
oh
killer.
yeah,
It's like this tense like build up. And because maybe I'm, it just felt longer than it was, but it felt like a long scene of
oh
them
yeah.
driving and before they even get to the gas station.
The tension is off the charts with
Yeah.
this.
Yeah.
And when he sees him, they immediately start struggling.
Mm-hmm.
And the Guardian character manages to climb into the front seat and start backing up the car. The
Yeah.
other guys see the car being stolen and this
Yeah.
violence happening in the car. So they go to chase it. But the camera is like positioned in the back seat the whole time. And the
Yeah.
car is driving backwards. And then the car goes off an embankment. They hit a light pole,
Mm-hmm.
spin around, barrel roll down this hill. Whereas the camera remains stationary. So you
Yeah.
just kind of see the people. Again, it's a shot you've seen a million times since, but this was the
Right.
first time I had ever seen anything like this in a movie, and
Yeah.
my jaw was on the floor.
Yeah.
And the car lands upside down. They're crushed underneath, and the Guardian pours this acid all over his face
Yeah. I
as
think,
the paramedics show up.
yeah, I'm wondering if it was holy water.
Oh, well, I don't think he's a vampire though. He's a human.
Really?
He's a human. Yeah.
Oh my God, that changes like the whole movie for me.
Yeah, he's a human.
That makes so much more sense. I feel stupid for not noticing that. But because like, they showed it in the beginning of the movie, so it's, not a spoiler for anyone listening along, but I was like, how did just jumping out a window kill him? Oh,
Yeah.
that's so funny. Okay, all right. This makes way more sense. All right.
Yes.
I feel like stupid, but at the same time I'm excited I know this now.
Yes, big reveal.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, so I'm assuming he has that for this reason. So if he gets caught, they can't trace him back to her.
Right.
Makes him unidentifiable. And so he gets taken to the hospital, and Abby's like very happy at home, but then she hears this news on the radio and is able to make the connection that it was him because he hasn't come home. So she goes into the hospital, and we get this cool scene where I really liked the scene because she goes in, she has no shoes on, and she's asking the nurse if she can see her dad. And the nurse says he's on the restricted floor. And so she leaves, and the nurse sees she doesn't have shoes. So the nurse runs after her, and the camera's on the nurse with the hospital in the background, but you see her climbing the wall.
Yeah.
And the way they do it is because I know, again, I've seen this movie and I'm always looking for her and I'm like, where is she going to be? And they do this really brilliant thing where a light in one of the windows flickers and it draws your attention to that part of the screen. And then you see her because she's the size of like a fly. Like it's very small and very subtle and really well done.
Yeah.
Love that. So she goes up, his face is really gross and melted off. And he lets her feed on him, and then he falls out of the window to his death. And so that brings us back to the beginning, where there's a detective now trying to figure out who this guy is and what is going on. So meanwhile, the next day, the school kids go to play ice hockey, and the bullies are threatening Owen as usual. And so Owen ends up hitting Kenny with this stick and splitting his ear in half.
This is like one of the grossest parts of the movie. Like with everything else. Yeah. It's yucky.
And I feel so bad for the gym teacher, like having to deal with this.
No, seriously.
The gym teacher, we haven't mentioned him, but he's very sweet. Like he's the only like nice adult. He's just trying to do his best. And
whenever I see a gym teacher, I think of the line from School of Rock, where he says, "Those who cannot do teach, and those who cannot teach become gym teachers." And like, I always believed that until this guy, because he's so sweet. He's
so
meant to
nice.
be a
He
gym
tried
teacher.
so hard.
Yeah.
He had been, I kind of glossed over it, but he had like Owen signs up for weightlifting and he's kind of
Mhm.
coaching him through that. You know, he's always telling Kenny to shut the fuck up and all this stuff.
Yes.
Like he's doing the best he can. So Owen's very proud of himself. And so he shares what he did with Abby and she kisses him and they go
Mhm.
into this like abandoned little underground apartment
Yeah.
and he wants to make a pact like kids do, I guess, where they make this
Mhm.
blood pact. He really cuts the fuck out of his thumb though. It's
Oh
like,
my God.
sir, you just need like a little dot or something.
Seriously, I know. It's like a gash.
He practically cuts his thumb in half and he's
Yeah.
bleeding so much. And so she goes into this bloodlust
Yeah.
and licks up the blood off the floor and is talking in her creepy demon voice and jumps out the window and like onto their neighbor, the woman, the sexy woman neighbor,
Yeah.
and like attacks the shit out of her.
Yeah.
And Owen goes into this tailspin and he's trying to talk to his mom who's like medicated herself to sleep and
Mm.
he calls his dad who's no help and
No.
he asks Abby flat out if she's a vampire, and this is where she says she's been 12 for a very long time.
Mhm.
And so he sees a picture on the table, and it's her with the Richard Jenkins character, but as a boy.
Oh, okay. So here's what I thought had happened is that she had met him as a boy and then let him grow to be an adult and
I
then
see.
made him a vampire for like an indeterminate amount of time because it was like convenient to have an adult with her.
Mm-hmm.
So I guess I wasn't like too crazy off. I really thought he was a vampire.
Yeah. He only goes out at night also. So I could see
Yeah.
that happening. We never see him during the day
Right,
either.
right. And he's also
So that
very
is a fair
secretive.
point.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So my bad, but he's just a creepy dude. So, but
Exactly.
honestly, I think it makes it scarier that he is this human who does this like bidding because yeah, that actually gives me more of an ick, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah. Ugh.
Well, we are going to get a new vampire because the woman who she
Mm-hmm.
fed on doesn't die and is in the hospital. And she starts drinking her own blood out
Oh
of
my
her own
God.
arm.
This scene is so fucked up. Like, I don't know if I've ever talked about it on the podcast, but hospitals are one of the scariest places to me, and not
Mm,
just because like of like like oh it's sad and the death and the illness. There's just something about something horrifying happening in a place where there's always activity like 24/7. Like
mm.
that really gets me. And so this scene where it's a pretty short scene and it's a pretty short span of time, but where this woman turns on herself and starts suckling her own blood while there's like her family and doctors talking right outside the door. Huh, huh. Yeah, it did something to me. I did not. I mean, I loved it because it's fantastic, but I also hated this scene.
Yeah, because then the nurse opens the blinds
Yes, and I feel so bad
and
for her.
the poor nurse, and then the woman bursts into flames and the nurse
Yes,
catches on fire and the whole
yeah,
room is just engulfed.
yeah. The nurse like tries to help her, so she goes, and she doesn't. Of course, the nurse doesn't know what's happening, so
Right.
she goes over to help, and she catches on fire, and you see her like take a few steps away on fire. It's
Oh,
so fucked up,
yeah,
and
it
it's
really is.
yeah, and she dies because they mention it on the news later.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah, that scene. Huh, huh. Yeah, maybe I don't want to become a vampire. That seems like a lot of stress.
The daylight part, it would be hard.
It would be hard. Yeah. Ugh, ugh.
So yeah, that's traumatic. Um, and so now at the apartment, Abby wants to come into Owen's place. And they haven't really brought this up in this movie, the whole like you need to invite vampires in, but
Right.
she says you need to invite me in and he says what if I don't, and she comes in anyway and then starts just bleeding from every like pore
Like,
and
yeah.
orifice. Yeah,
like it comes from like her scalp and starts dripping down
Ugh.
her face. Ah,
It's
crazy.
really gross.
Yeah.
And so he freaks out. He says, "You can come in, you can come in." And he's like, "Why don't you take a shower?" And so she cleans herself up and he's dancing to another like little 80s song.
Hmm.
They don't write them like that anymore. That was a good one. I love the soundtrack for this.
Yeah.
And he lets Abby take one of his mom's dresses.
Hmm.
And mom comes home and Abby like escapes out the window.
Yeah.
And we get the old commercial, which I never remember seeing, but it says it's 10 p.m. Do you know where your children are?
Yes. I don't remember that specific one, but I remember the one from like the late 90s, early 2000s. It was similar vibe.
Oh, really? Okay. I
Yeah.
had never seen those. I've heard of it and seen it parodied, but not.
Oh, yeah. I
Yeah.
think it was really popular on like local news channels
Yeah.
because my father is the type of dad who has the bad habit of falling asleep in a chair in front of the TV.
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah.
So it was frequently on the TV late at night.
This scene is just like your childhood.
It really is spot on.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mom's passed out and the commercials on the TV.
Literally, yeah. I also used to climb in and out of windows, not to be secret, but just because I thought it was cooler. So,
Oh, that's fun.
yeah. So I am basically these children.
You're ready. All you're missing is the vampirism.
Yeah. Yeah,
Mhm.
exactly.
So Owen goes to Abby's apartment and she's in the bathtub, like covered
Mhm.
in stuff.
Yeah. Looks
And
cozy.
it does look cozy. I
I
love
thought it
being in a
was,
small confined space.
yeah, I thought it was kind of a really smart take on, vampires usually sleeping in coffins because it is kind of coffin shape. And then it has like this like lid on it. So I thought that
That's
was
true.
actually like really funny and clever. I liked that.
Yeah. And the detective shows up, and I don't think he has a name either. He's just the detective.
Yeah.
And he's tracked, this guy back to this apartment, and he hears Owen inside. So
Hmm.
he kicks the door down and goes into the bathroom, and he's about to pull the stuff away and let light on Abby. So Owen shouts out, like, "Stop, don't do that." And Abby then just attacks the shit out of this detective.
Yeah. Again, another traumatizing scene. I mean, she has like a personal vendetta against this guy. I mean,
Hmm.
it's blood everywhere. Um, I don't know if you were going to mention it, but there's the really sad scene of he's on the floor with her like suckling on him and he's very clearly going to die. I mean, there's just blood everywhere and he has blood all over his hands and he reaches out to Owen and Owen, it looks like he's actually going to take his hand and he just closes the door slowly.
Oh, yeah.
It's brutal. It's
Yeah.
brutal.
Lets it happen.
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
so after this, Abby says, "Well, I've got to leave." So
She's gotta
she's gonna go.
go.
So she kisses Owen, leaving this like the detective's blood smeared on his lips. Oh,
Yeah.
so good.
Yeah.
But then she just like hops in a cab, like off she goes.
Yep.
And so Owen like hides the detective's body in that basement apartment.
Yeah. Which I would like to know how, he didn't leave like a huge trail of blood or
No, I
I have no
know.
idea.
Well, he's
But
been doing the weightlifting, so
that's
after school.
true. That's true. He's a very strong
Yeah,
boy now.
he's been
Yeah.
doing the weightlifting. So we get this final bullying scene. So Kenny has brought back his brother,
Hmm.
who ends up being worse than he is.
Oh, he's real fucked
And
up.
oh my God. So he threatens to poke out one of Owen's eyes with a knife if he
Hmm.
can't hold his breath for 3 minutes in the
Yeah.
pool, and then shoves his head down under the
And holds
pool.
him. Yeah.
It's so traumatic. As
It
someone who is,
is.
I don't like pools or my head being underwater, so this
No.
part really freaks me out.
Yeah.
But then you hear all this commotion, And
Uh-huh.
then I don't know if you see the arm detach first or the guy's head falls off.
It's like it's hard not to laugh when talking about it, but it is so genuinely, like, as someone who watches a lot of horror movies and feels very desensitized to a lot of things, it is so genuinely fucked up and scary.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, she's clearly been able to transform into some sort of creature and is just like
Yes.
ripping the shit out of all these kids.
Yeah. I mean, there's
And
at least four of them, so she's just,
yes.
yeah.
Oh, there's body parts and blood falling in the pool.
Yep.
Dylan Minnette gets dragged upside down through
Mm-hmm.
the pool. And on the commentary, they said they actually did that. They hung him
Oh,
upside down and would drag him through the pool like that. So, like,
oh my
that's
God.
actually him,
Wow.
which is nuts.
Good job.
And, like, I know. And it's so intense. And then she pulls Owen out,
Yep.
and next thing you know, they're leaving together. They're on a train,
Mm-hmm.
and she's in her trunk, and they're tapping their Morse code to each other,
Yes.
and he's eating their now and later, and off they go.
Yes. Yep. So cute. They're having an adventure.
It's very cute, but you also have to wonder, is he going to be the Richard Jenkins character in, like
Right.
20 to 30 years? And it's like,
Yeah.
it's one of the most like sweet slash disturbing endings to any story. She's like, oh, this is so
Exactly.
sweet in the moment, but like, what is next for these two?
Exactly. And then you have to, like, kind of, well, especially now that I know he wasn't a vampire and everything and what has happened. I did always kind of assume, though, that there is like a level of maybe manipulation that she's doing with, keeping these like companion,
Yeah.
it's very Doctor Who and his companions.
Oh, I don't watch Doctor Who.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Does
So,
he always
she's
have like a
got,
lady or
yeah,
companion or something? Okay.
they always have a lady with them. They travel around in a box. So it really,
Wow.
I mean, it's identical.
Maybe
Um,
Chloe can be the next doctor.
ooh, I would sign up for that. Um, yeah, it's it's a very fitting. I don't want to use the term like bittersweet, but yeah, it is quite funny how like bright and kind of cheery the final scene is, and it's
Yeah.
like, ooh, oh. And also there was literally just four teenagers brutally murdered.
Oh yeah, and they're just like, all right, let's get our train tickets and get out
Yeah.
of here. And again, that poor gym teacher, like they
Oh,
they lure him away because they set a dumpster on
you're
fire, and they're like,
right.
"There's a fire," and he's going out to put out this literal fire, and he's
And
gonna
he's
come
gonna
back,
come
and all
back.
of the kids have been ripped to pieces in the
I didn't
pool.
even think of that. He's so getting
Like
fired. Oh
this
my
poor
God.
guy.
Oh, oh my God. I didn't even think of that.
Yeah, I think about him a lot now.
Yeah.
Just like this is the thing. Yeah, I don't think I was really working with. Well, I guess I did watch this a few years ago, but not in a way like, oh, I'm someone who works with children. And now it's just
Yeah.
like, oh my God,
Oh my
like the
God.
worst day ever on the job.
Well, not only that, but now one of your students is missing too. Like,
Right.
he probably left right from there. It doesn't look like he has a lot of stuff. Um, yeah, you're fucked, dude.
Oh man.
He's got to be fired. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Someone
But I
has
mean,
to,
or, I mean, say if he didn't, I'd quit. I'd be like, I can't work at this school anymore. What the fuck is going on?
Oh my God. Seriously, poor guy.
Uh, well, on that note, let's take a short break and then we'll return with our Gothic roundup and we'll decide, is it Gothic? All right, ghosties, we're back with our Gothic roundup. All Gothic films have four elements: a girl, a guy, a house, and a haunt. And in this one, our girl and guy in this order are Owen and Abby. And there
Mm-hmm.
is this kind of, we always say girl, guy, not gender terms, but there is this like androgyny. Even if we take
Yes.
out the fact that the movie is not acknowledging that she in the origin story was actually a boy,
Yeah,
like they're just very androgynous children.
they are. I mean, it's kind of a, you know, a factor of casting children who look like children is
Mm-hmm.
kids just inherently are more androgynous.
Mm-hmm.
And like Robert Ebert said, Robert Roger, oh my God, sorry. There is this like just very sexless, any sort of like romantic aspects that really has more to do with like just closeness and having someone to be close to. It's not, sensual. So,
Right.
yeah, but you're right. Yeah, they are like androgynous and also in the sense that the roles are kind of reversed.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, like she's the more masculine figure. Well, especially
Mm-hmm.
when we first meet her, she's always in a hoodie. We don't really see her hair. They
Right.
dress her, I feel like, more masculine. And then Kodi Smit-McPhee just looks very androgynous. Like
Yes.
he's still using that to his advantage with
Yes.
Power the Dog and some very cute fashion campaigns he's been in.
Yes.
But
Yeah.
he's also the bully's always calling him a little girl and stuff like
Yeah.
this. So
Oh,
there's an
you're
interesting
right.
gender dynamic between the two
Yeah.
of them.
You're right. You're right. And again, that is like why I love breaking down things like this in the podcast, because like like just you saying the thing about the bully being like little girl, when I'm watching it, I'm just thinking, oh, that's so mean. But now like looking, it's so like demasculating. And
Mm-hmm.
um yeah, it is, and then when she speaks in sort of her authoritative voice, it's very deep and manly and demonic. So um they definitely play with gender roles.
Yeah, yeah, and you mentioned Ebert,
Mm,
Robert.
Robert, good old
He
Robbie.
his review talks a bit about the ending as well, and talks about how he says Owen will most likely move into Abby's life as her next familiar. She will protect him. Among the things she will save him from is the necessity of growing up and functioning as a normal male. She will control everything. To be a servant is the price for not being a victim.
Interesting.
There's a lot to unpack there
Yes.
from Ebert. But yeah.
Yeah. I, like you said, a lot to unpack. It's hard because I definitely see where he's coming from and I agree in some sense, but on the other hand, like I always got the sense that he genuinely liked being around Abby. And
Yes.
yes, she's offering him this protection, and you could look at it as he becomes very like subservient, which you kind of see with, maybe the relationship will evolve that way because it is kind of
Hmm.
what happens to Abby and the Guardian. But at least for the time being, it's a symbiotic relationship.
Right. We have to hope that they'll do it differently this time, I think.
Yeah, which, might not happen. But
Yeah.
what do
Ugh.
they say? Like craziness is doing the same thing over and over again and expecting
Expecting
different
different.
results.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Fingers crossed though for sweet, sweet Owen.
I know.
Yeah. Even though he's
So,
crazy and scary.
right. And so, in a way, she's kind of saving other people from him, too.
That's
But, like,
true.
well, but not really, because I mean, he'll have to kill people, but he'll get to he'll get to do that. Like you get the feeling that
Yes.
he would become a murderer and like
Yeah.
he now will and like will get to do that. But whereas the Richard Jenkins character seems to not like doing it,
Yeah.
Owen might actually enjoy it.
Right. Well, and it's
So it
funny
might
because it
work out
kind of,
better.
yeah, it kind of brings back like that Richard Jenkins character, like feeling very serial killery, and especially, once I realized he was human, like that very like eerie, like serial killer. I feel like Owen would fit into that a little bit better. Although, there weren't that many serial killers in the 90s, so he's going a little against the grain, but we
That's
love that
true.
for him.
Yeah.
Yeah,
They're in the desert. Yeah, there could be, and we just never hear about it.
that is true. And I mean, there's still some, and I mean, there's still some to this day. So,
Yeah.
Who
And they're all
knows
the
what
young
they're up
white
to?
men. So, yeah.
It's true. It's true.
So speaking of the desert, I put our house down as Los Alamos, the town,
Okay.
and the 80s. The 80s. This movie is
Yeah.
very 80s, and I generally hate the 80s. I don't like
Mm.
80s nostalgia
Yeah.
and like Stranger Things and all that stuff. I cannot fucking stand. And I went off on a rant. I feel like 10 years ago was like peak 80s.
Yeah.
We're getting into 90s
We
now.
are.
Like
Yeah.
Olivia Rodrigo is ushering us into
Yeah.
reliving the 90s, and I'm down
Yeah.
for that
90s
because
and like early 2000s.
uh,
Yeah, for sure.
I love the 90s. But the 80s I fucking hate. Like
Mm.
Trump is from the 80s. Like Trump's slogan might as
Mm.
well be make America 1980 again. Like there's
Yeah.
just I hate that everything that's wrong with this country originated in the 80s, politically,
Right.
socially, all
Yeah.
this stuff. And so what I love about this movie is that the 80s are fucking miserable for these kids. It
Yes.
somehow manages to be both nostalgic for the 80s and like this sucked.
Yes. You're right. Because, like, in
Yeah.
Stranger Things, everything is bright and neon. And then, we kind of brought it up earlier, like with the arcade scene. Like, yes, it's bright and it's neon, but it looks fucking depressing in there.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
it's this, like, very, like, cool tone. Like, you know, I would, like, I'm just thinking right now, I'm sitting in my bedroom with, like, my warm toned fairy lights. If I had to spend 5 minutes in that arcade, I would fucking go off the deep end. And yeah, everything's so dark and dreary. And in Stranger Things, they're always riding around on their bicycles. They can get anywhere they need to go on their
Uh,
bicycles.
Very
It's like,
Spielberg.
yes, it's so obvious in this that it's like, because I thought you were going to say for the house, it would be like the apartment complex, because it feels like they're fucking stuck there because they can't go
Yes.
anywhere. They're not old
Yeah.
enough to drive or go anywhere. And his mom says something about not leaving the courtyard. Like they feel very
Oh,
like
that's
stuck.
true. Yeah. They
Yeah.
don't have the freedom that these other 80s kids have.
No. And I don't think a lot of kids in the 80s really did. I mean, I grew up
I
in the
didn't.
90s. You didn't?
No, but I also
Yeah.
couldn't ride a bike and didn't want to
Yeah.
go anywhere. But maybe, I don't know, maybe it's because I was trapped, and
Yes.
I just
Yeah.
internalized that.
We'll do with that so gothic on you.
My childhood. Jesus
Yeah.
Christ. Oh man. I can't wait for that one. That one will be
Yeah.
really traumatic.
Yeah. But yeah, I really, really like your point about this showcasing the 80s as this like kind of bummer of a time. There's like
Yeah,
bullies, it sucks.
it sucked.
Yeah.
Yes, it was a different time and it was bad. Like,
Hmm.
let's acknowledge that it was bad.
Yeah.
But yeah, so then we have our haunt,
Hmm.
vampirism. We've
Yep.
had a few vampire things. I don't know if this quite the only thing it really does differently is the whole let me in thing, but even that's not really fully like
Like fleshed
integrated into
out.
the story.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. I like it because they do mention it a couple times. And when I think of the title, I think of it more as like, not to sound like a film bro, but like, let me in to your life, like,
Mm-hmm.
let me crack the surface.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so I get like what they were doing, but it's so funny because I feel like sometimes with like, I've read a couple vampire books. I wish I could remember one off the top of my head, but like more modern vampire stories, they'll joke about how the stereotypes aren't true. And I like
Oh
that
yeah.
this is a movie that has those stereotypes, but they play it like pretty seriously. Like
Yeah.
the daylight, obviously, catching that one poor woman on fire, the sleeping in the bathtub. There's something else they do that I thought was really, oh, when she eats the candy and she immediately vomits.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Because I think there's a scene in, oh my goodness, what was it that I was watching? Maybe What We Do in the Shadows? I can't remember. But they eat something. I think it is What We Do in the Shadows in the movie. They eat something and they just start vomiting like for like minutes on minutes, like just a constant stream. And it is like kind of funny. Well, it is funny in that movie, but it's they take it seriously in this movie, and I feel bad for her.
Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah.
I like that it adheres to the vampire tropes
Mm-hmm.
with really dwelling on them. We don't need to know about we'd never find out how she got made a vampire.
Yeah.
There's no really lore behind it. It relies on the audience just knowing these basic vampire tropes, which I
Yes.
appreciate as well. You're just coming into it with that knowledge.
Right, right.
And then I wanted to suggest bonus gothic,
Mm.
one that I've forgotten about because we haven't had one in a while, but I should have brought it up for House of Yes,
Mm.
and that is Romantic Rival. And I really should have
Oh,
brought it up for House of Yes because we never get a romantic rival who is someone's biological
yes.
twin.
Yeah.
But but because the adult Richard Jenkins, and he starts getting jealous of the kid.
Yeah.
Oh, it's hard to tell. Is he jealous or is he protecting him? Is he like, don't go near that
Mm,
kid because I don't want him to turn into me? Or is he like feeling jealous that she's going to
right.
replace him? It's such an interesting. So it may not
Yeah.
even be romantic, but there does seem to be this tension there.
Right. And when Owen finds the picture, it's unclear, correct me if I'm wrong, if he knows that that's
Right.
the Guardian. But he sees this picture and it's I believe it's like one of those photo booth pictures, like with the strips, and they look like it's, Abby and this other boy. Um, and they're like having a good time. And that really upsets Owen. He gets very upset and I think he leaves or
That's
something.
true.
Um, so yeah, there's like this possessiveness.
Yeah, for
Yeah.
sure. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And then I do really like that scene, but it was just making me think like that photo booth picture would have had to be taken in like 1942. And I just feel
Mm,
like no one looked like Chloe Moretz in 1942. Like
I know. Yeah.
like she's been like genetically engineered like to look
Yes.
the way she does. Like she just
Yes.
looks so 2012. No one looked like her in 1942.
I think there's like a TikTok trend or something. I've seen a couple videos about it, about how like there are certain people who, you could picture them like in the 1800s, like you have like your Keira Knightleys and
Mm-mm.
those types of
Yes,
actresses, but then
timeless.
you have actresses like um like Zendaya. I mean, like I could not picture her in like a period piece. Chloe Grace Moretz,
Right.
you know, there are just some people who they just don't, they look like modern people.
Yes. Yeah. Zac Efron. Mm-hmm.
Yes, yeah, he's a modern boy. He definitely is.
Yes.
Even,
Yes. And
I will say, I think even Daniel Radcliffe kind of falls into that because he was very distracting to me in Woman in Black for that reason. Is he looked too
oh,
modern?
interesting.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yep. That's my hot take for this
I
episode.
love that.
Yeah.
Our other Hammer film. So yeah.
Yes. Yeah. Right.
Well, what do you think? Is this movie gothic?
I would say so. I think it's gothic. It's not spooky house candelabra gothic, but I think it's gothic.
I think so too. I was trying to remember what we said about Interview with the Vampire. Something about
Mm,
vampires feels not gothic to me, but I do
right.
think this is gothic because we're
Yeah.
getting into the same tropes. Or it could be like the prequel to a gothic. We're definitely going into
Yes.
gothic territory.
Right.
It's skirting that, but I do
Right.
think it is gothic.
Yeah. And I think, you know, vampires are such an interesting like horror creature because I think inherently they are like one of the most gothic. I mean, I'm pretty sure Dracula is like a quintessential gothic novel, but there's something about it. I think the term gothic to me, and I think to a lot of people, really does evoke, you know, again, like that Crimson Peak, like
Yeah.
spooky old house, big ball gown. But I mean, honestly, like what is more gothic than living a ungodly amount of time and like drinking blood? Like it's so gothic.
Seducing people to do your
Yes.
bidding. Yeah.
Right.
No, it's true. That's a
Yes.
good point.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, so gothic. Let me
So
in.
gothic. Yeah.
Thank you, Amanda. And thank you, Ghosties, for listening to us break down Let Me In. Please subscribe wherever you get your podcasts. Rate and review us on Apple Podcasts or do our little poll on Spotify. Drop us an email at sogothicpod@gmail.com and follow follow us on Instagram, where every month or so we post a picture. And sometimes we hint at what we'll discuss next. So until then, stay ghosty. Boo bye.
Bye.